Oh, okay. Yeah, hello everybody out there, and welcome to this week's HackSurfer Hangout. Today we're going to be talking kind of about critical infrastructure security and kind of what's going on over in Israel. Um, our guest today is Mark Gazit. He's the CEO of ThetaRay. How are you doing, Mark?
Excellent. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, can you maybe just give us a little bit of background about you and about ThetaRay and kind of what your company does?
Sure. So, first of all, my name is Mark, and I'm managing this company. I have done a few startups before. Actually, I started my career when my first civil work, I would say, after the Israeli army was breaking into bank accounts. It was more than 20 years ago, and getting paid. I think I was the first one in Israel who got paid by the banks to break into their accounts, which was fun. Today, everybody does it. Some people get paid, some people make sure that they grab the money. And currently I'm managing a company called ThetaRay, which is, I believe, an amazing company because it solves a problem that was considered to be unsolvable, which is to find unknown threats, especially against the critical infrastructure. And it's also interesting because it's built on academic work that was performed by two professors for the last 10 years. One of them is Professor Koefman from Yale University, who got a Presidential Medal of Honor from President Clinton, 20 years in the advisory board of DARPA. Second one is Professor Alba from Tel Aviv University. And they developed a set of algorithms that can look at big data, huge amount of data, and find those attacks that we even don't expect to happen. And the first implementation of our technology is protecting critical infrastructure, which is, we believe, currently is not very much protected. And I guess the viewers heard about Stuxnet in the past, or servers of the Russian snake these days. We see that the existing protection systems that protect networks not necessarily protect power plants, industrial organizations, even large financial institutions. They are exposed. Sometimes it can take as long as 8 months to discover that the system has been compromised, and we making the detection very fast. We detect even those attacks that have been unknown in the currently or in the past, and we do it in minutes instead of months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you kind of mentioned unknown threats. I'm just kind of curious, what do you mean by unknown threats?
So let's start with an example. Can I use Stuxnet example? Do you think that everybody is familiar with that example? Or maybe I should say a few words. So one of the first attacks that sort of mixed between cybersecurity and IT and physical data was an attack on an Iranian nuclear facility where a controlling computer was manipulated or hacked using malware to instruct centrifuges to spin very fast. But the presentation to the users was different. Presentation was that the centrifuges are spinning in the regular way, on the regular speed. And for a long time, more than 2 years, people didn't understand why those centrifuges get out of order because nobody saw that they are spinning fast. So it's one example. And nobody expected this type of attack to happen because actually everything looks okay. Another one is an oil rig somewhere in the shores of Africa that a hack was done against the balancing computer of the rig. Now, we shouldn't be afraid, rig will never fall out, but it went out of balance. And when rig gets out of the balance, the procedures automatically shut down the oil production, because otherwise can be an oil spill. Again, nobody expected this computer to be hacked. It took about 1 week to discover what has happened. For 1 week, this facility didn't produce any oil, which is a huge hit. Imagine somebody would do it on many sort of oil pumping rigs. Now, nobody expects those attacks. People expect network attacks. This attack used network, but actually affected operational data. And the system we built is a system that breakthrough in a way it works because it not only listens to the network. Of course, we look at the network, we look at the IP traffic, we look at the TCP traffic, UDP, etc. But we also simultaneously look at the operational data. And we don't try to learn the data. We just let mathematics to do the job. And if something weird happens, we say, okay, there is a problem. We should deal with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you kind of mentioned or gave a few examples where there was sort of physical damage, or like with the oil rig, maybe they shut down for a while. I guess I'm kind of wondering like how often that happens. I mean, is that something that I guess is fairly common, where an attack kind of translates into sort of like a direct kind of loss or anything physical like that?
So we see that it happens more and more, and in different sort of types and shapes. Those attacks, of course, have a very high profile because and there is an electricity generation facility in a country in Latin America that was shut down by the narco traffic guys against a security attack. This thing gets high profile, but there is one type of critical infrastructure that's currently being compromised again, and it's financial institutions. And I think there, the numbers are much higher even today. Today, it pays off to be a hacker, if you think about it, because you break into a financial institution, you make sort of small transactions to your bank account, get a few millions or tens of millions of dollars, and then disappear. And funnily enough, today there are great systems that will look at financial transactions. There are great systems that will try to protect banks against cyber attacks. But systems that will do what we do, which mean look at the network data, but simultaneously look at financial transactions, are not very common. And I think today, and we see the statistics, there is a very large number of financial institutions that have been affected by this type of attacks. What will happen in the very near future is the industrial internet, which is sort of a subset of Internet of Things, mainly dealing with machines kicking on. So we have the Predix project by GE, which is basically the industrial internet project. That the idea is to connect all the machines to the internet, either private or public clouds. We see the Internet of Everything initiative by Cisco. We see Google buying companies such as Nest that connects physical with internet activities. So I think that currently there are many financial institutions that are being attacked. Smaller number of operational institutions. I see that in the very near future we'll see more and more physical instances being connected to the internet, and bad guys sort of abusing this fact and breaking more and more to those systems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned kind of the fact is that sort of everything's sort of growing in terms of being connected. I'm just kind of wondering, I guess, how you guys sort of would rank your critical infrastructure. So I know over here in the U.S., former head of the NSA, General Keith Alexander, gave the U.S. infrastructure a 3 out of 10. Obviously not very good in terms of vulnerability. I'm just kind of wondering, where you guys sit, if you feel you're sort of better prepared than that, or if you feel you're kind of in the same boat.
You mean we as a company, or
just kind of in terms of like Israel and sort of their infrastructure?
Yeah, that's what I thought. So I think Israel has to be prepared, and it's not a secret that there are Israeli companies that are very active in this field. I'm not sure we've done it by choice, but on the other hand, Israel is a beautiful country. The neighborhood is a little bit difficult. So we suffer, Israel as a country suffers from a lot of cyber attacks. 1 month ago, there was a big organized cyber attack on Israel. Luckily, it didn't cause any substantial damage. It happens every month. So Israel government takes the cybersecurity of the critical infrastructure extremely seriously. Now, I should say that I think that the United States also takes the necessary efforts. It's not a secret that General Electric invested in our company, and being very large industrial, probably the best industrial company in the United States, we see that the efforts they're investing in cyber protection of their machines. So yeah, Israel, we think that Israel is protected. We've been attacked every day. There are like hundreds of thousands cybersecurity attacks on the Israel electricity company. We have only one in Israel. I think that in the United States also people take necessary measures. We're lucky. to have some very good people here in Israel that helps us with the ideas and with experience working with us, and we gladly share this information and those techniques and technologies with our customers in the United States and worldwide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a story, I think it was in December of 2013, I was just talking about how Saudi Arabia and Israel were sort of working together to develop a super Stuxnet. I don't know if you kind of heard of that, or if you know if there's any truth behind it. I'm just kind of curious to get your thoughts on that. It seems like people kind of agree the first one was sort of a bad idea, so I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on that.
So I definitely can't comment on that particular project if it exists or not, but I can just say that according to the press, and I think you mentioned it in one of your past Hangouts, Saudi infrastructure has been affected. Aramco, which is the largest Saudi oil company, was attacked by Iranians, and they shut down 30,000 computers for a week. Huge damage for an oil company. So I do think that there is an interest not only in Israel but around Israel to make sure that cybersecurity attacks will not harm critical infrastructure in this area, because I can't comment on specific project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one other kind of story that we heard about is just there's a major roadway that was shut down for a couple of days due to some cyber attacks. I don't know if you're familiar with that. I think that was last year. But the story I was reading, it said that there was hundreds of thousands of dollars in damage. So I don't know if you're familiar with this story, but I guess I'm just curious sort of what kind of that damage was. Was it just staff kind of needing to fix it, or was there any physical damage done at all?
The story I heard was about actually attacking the sort of financial infrastructure of a payment system of the sort of toll road. So I heard that there were damages, but not physical damages, financial damages in this case.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like the denial of service attack on the cameras and the sort of sensors. So the billing didn't work.
Yeah, you kind of brought up sort of big data a little bit too. I guess there's been a few articles kind of almost like a sort of a backlash against big data because people are just kind of getting, I don't know if they're getting sick of hearing about it all the time. But I just wondered if you kind of have any thoughts kind of in general on sort of big data, kind of the trends, sort of where it's going to be going and how it can be used to help in cybersecurity.
Yeah, I think it's an extremely interesting topic. Because you're absolutely right, people are sick and tired hearing again and again about big data analytics and anomaly detection using big data. And you're right, if you use sort of the normal way of using it, it doesn't really work. And think about huge amounts of data that we are collecting, and think about security system that we need to find sort of anomalies. The original, I would say, the traditional way is to do patterns and rules. The things that we've done with firewalls. So we will build, the idea was that we'll build very good patterns and rules, and if we look at financial data, we'll have systems like Actimize, On-Net Witness, great systems that will be rule-based and will try to catch all sorts of known types of frauds. We'll put rule-based solutions or patterns or heuristic analysis on our network to try to find unknown information or maybe known information. And if we'd like to deal with physical security, then we can put sort of a system based on rules and thresholds. So if somebody uses his access card 5 times to get into a room and doesn't get allowance, it will be suspicious. And now we need to build one system that will collect all this data, will analyze all those patterns, and we'll do it in real time, almost impossible from technical point of view. Not talking about the fact that to find a person that will be expert in financial transactions, and at the same time will be an expert in network security, and of course will be a great expert in sort of physical attendance or physical security, is also almost impossible. So with those huge amounts of data, pattern-based, rule-based big data analytics just simply didn't work. And that's, I think, why there is a need for our company. Because we do it in a way that is totally mathematical, unsupervised, no human intervention. We just let computers to learn all those huge amounts of big data. We have few algorithms. Some of them are very sophisticated, not because they should be sophisticated, but because they need to deal with a huge amount of information in a very fast pace. And we found that if you let computers to find those issues and to build sort of a picture of the world in an automatic way, computers can find, computers are not human beings. We are much smarter. But computers can go over huge amounts of data very fast and find suspicious sort of patterns or behaviors without any need to teach the computer how to do it, just to give them the algorithm. And that's exactly what we do. And in our case, we don't care if it's financial information, if it's network information, if it's physical employee attendance information. For us, it's just numbers. I think the sort of closest thing I can compare is the algo trading. In the past, there were people who were so good in doing sort of investments and filling the stock market. But now, the number of those people is very small. The number of these people is very small, and most of the people can't compete with computers. So we'll see that all the hedge funds will deploy computers to do algo trading. I think the same thing is happening in the cybersecurity arena. The amount of data is enormous, and people can't analyze this data manually anymore and write those rules and try to think about new ways and try to learn how hackers work and add additional patterns. It does work, but when we talk about critical infrastructure, and when we really need to make sure that we will catch all the unknown attacks, something more sophisticated is needed. In our case, big data and ever-increasing amounts of data, which is a curse for others. In our case, it's actually a blessing. Some people ask, okay, so what are your disadvantages? And the disadvantage of our system is we need a lot of data to make the system work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a couple questions out there from people that are watching. If anyone does have a question, we've still got a few minutes left, so feel free to post them and we'll try to get them answered. But Richard, he wants to know, he says, given the rise in fears over cyber attacks of the financial infrastructure in the United States, what's the financial infrastructure status in Israel like, and how is it coping with similar issues, if any?
In Israel, there is a regulation that regulates the cyber protection from financial institutions. They have to make sure that they are protected, and there are government agencies that will double-check that they not only say that they are protected, but actually they are protected. I think it's in this regard, cybersecurity is like safety. It's good that organizations will do it by themselves, but I think the government should take the ownership to at least check that they're doing a good job. So that's the situation in Israel.
Mm-hmm. And then one other question, Crispin, he says, in the context of Israeli entities as the target of cyber attacks, are there any patterns that you see as unique that in some ways sort of characterize the attacks, you know, such as common practices or common effects that occur?
Yes, we do. I would say defacing is something that is one of the common patterns, since some of the attacks we believe done by people who would like to sort of publicize their message, which is not necessarily an Israeli-friendly message. The willingness to hack Israeli government computers and to put their messages to deface the computers is one effort that we see. Second one is attempt to create denial of service attacks against Israeli organizations, and of course a lot of tries to affect critical infrastructure, especially physical infrastructure, transportation, power generation, etc. We've seen a few ways of the attacks. One of the disadvantages of Israel is that it's a self-contained country here in the Middle East. Our electricity system is not connected to our neighbors, and our telecommunication systems don't use our neighbors' facilities, so Israel has its own connection to the internet. This is a disadvantage, but from a cybersecurity point of view, it's also an advantage because we know exactly where the internet traffic comes from and how to look at the gateways. Israel has a few cables connecting Israel to the internet, so we can look at the information traveling through these, I would say, ingress points, analyze it, and touch wood, till now we've been lucky to catch those attacks. I should also mention that, and it's not a secret, that all the Israeli government agencies by law has to be behind an Israeli national government organization that protects all those websites.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd read that there's basically only one sort of kind of electric company that's kind of in charge of all the critical infrastructure in Israel. Is that, if that's true, is that kind of a concern? It seems like just one target, if they could take it down, would make quite an impact.
It's a very good question. On one hand, there is one target that if they will hit, we'll have a problem. On the other hand, it's only one target that we need to protect. Mm-hmm. So the protection is easier as well. Some people call Israel a laboratory for cybersecurity because we have a huge number of attacks, but we have relatively small number of organizations to protect. Israel itself is a very small country. It's about 7 million people. So we can sort of be very, very innovative and to try things and deploy them very fast, while in countries like the United States, where you have hundreds, if not thousands of power generation facilities, the implementation of new ideas will be rather difficult. In Israel, we have an advantage of having a small number of targets to protect, so we can try new things fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Anonymous had OpIsrael, I think it was about a month ago, maybe 2 now. I'm just curious, kind of your thoughts. Someone who's in Israel, I guess over here, everyone kind of called it a failure and kind of didn't seem like there was much impact. But did you guys kind of notice anything or have any thoughts on OpIsrael?
It was actually the second OpIsrael within 3 months, and I have to tell you that everybody in Israel takes it very seriously. We don't take lightly the efforts, and we believe that people on the other side are as professional as they could be. Luckily, there were no substantial damage, and luckily, most of the attempts has been caught. I'm not aware of any single sort of substantial site website that has been defaced. Of course, there are always private websites that sit on sort of servers around the world and not necessarily in Israel and can be defaced, but you can increase the load on some organizations, which happens, so maybe the browsing will be a little bit more difficult. Luckily, in these 2 instances, we didn't see any substantial damage, but I can tell you that everybody takes it very seriously, as any other website attack. Unfortunately, we have to, although there are from time to time this type of attacks, I can tell you that the relevant people in Israel have to work 365 days a year, 24/7. We always have those attacks, whether they declared as an operation or just people trying to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then just kind of looking sort of at critical infrastructure in general, it seems looking back at 2013, like that was sort of the biggest year in terms of cybercrime for sort of each sector, whether it was financials or fraud or whatever. So I guess, just based off that, I would assume that it's just going to keep growing in terms of critical infrastructure hacking attempts. So I guess just kind of looking forward the next couple of years, is there any, I don't know, kind of trends or kind of certain things that you see in terms of that?
Yes, definitely. I think that maybe I will sort of reflect on the past. I had the privilege to be one of the first employees of the first Israeli internet service provider. And I remember those days where people told me, look, we will never be connected to the internet. And now everybody is connected. I remember lawyers saying, look, we have confidentiality clauses with our customers. We can't be connected to the internet, etc., etc. I think the same is happening with industrial internet. Today, there is still a notion of companies that say maybe we'll be disconnected from the internet. But again, if I will quote G publications, you will see that they made a study showing how much saving will be done if industrial organizations will be connected to the internet. And one of them, for example, is airplanes. Imagine Malaysian plane had used SATCOM to connect its engines and its operational systems to some command and control center. The advantage is that you can in real time know what's going on to solve problems. According to this study, just the fuel saving that you will get, because you constantly get engine parameters on the ground, and when the plane is landing, you can immediately replace the faulty parts without sort of letting the plane to wait a few hours on the ground. Even just this thing can save about $20 billion for the next 10 years. So this is the positive side. The downside is that we will see airplane engines connected to the internet. We will see cars connected. I think today you can see cars that are connected to some maintenance centers with their controllers. We will see additional hardware devices connected to the internet. So as you truly said, Jeff, 2013, I think it was a year where the threat on industrial internet or on Internet of Everything or Internet of Things has started. And I think that more devices, more machines, more things will be connected to the internet, and more devices, more machines, more things will be hacked by bad guys over the internet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you have time, we just have two quick questions that I've kind of been asking everybody. I guess the first one is, there just seems to be a whole lot of confusion kind of around cybersecurity. A lot of people, I guess, don't really know what to do, and even some IT people are kind of confused. So I'm just kind of wondering your thoughts as to why you think everyone is so confused about it.
Yeah, and again, I will sort of give my two cents through the prism of the things I'm doing, because I think there are many reasons. First of all, I think it's the first time we're meeting a situation where virtual data meets physical data, where a virus in my computer can not only steal my photos, digital photos, but it can actually steal my money. Where a virus in power station can not only sort of makes smart or funny pictures on the operator screens, as we've seen in a few of the films, but can actually shut down the entire operation. So that's the first reason. The second reason is I think people starting to understand that there is no one single system, or there is no one single bullet that can protect the organization. So protection is important, but today the trend is to have more of the detection. The assumption is that we will be penetrated. The assumption is that somebody will find a way to hack into our organization, whether it's through the network, by thumb drives, social engineering, etc. And we need to install those detection solutions, which is confusing because in the past, some of the people thought that it's enough to have a very good firewall, a very good door, a very good wall, and things will be okay. But I think as it happened in the physical security, now it's happening in cybersecurity. The security, as we know it, built of walls and gates, is not working anymore. It's confusing. It's a chaotic world. It creates a lot of threats. We believe it also creates a lot of opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the other question, a lot of people at HackSurfer, we kind of try to cater towards, maybe the 95% that don't really understand cybersecurity so well. So I don't know if you really work with many small businesses, but say you're a small business, for example, and you kind of know you should do something about cybersecurity, but you don't really know what you should do. Do you have any kind of advice for those kind of people and where they should start?
So we don't have many small businesses that we work with, but on the other hand, myself being a user and having many friends and serving those people in other companies, I think the same rules that we use for thousands of years in physical security works in cybersecurity as well. Things like don't take cookies from strangers. On one hand. Second, back up your data. Make sure that you don't put your eggs in one system. Make sure that you have some detection mechanisms. Pay attention. If something goes wrong, probably something does go wrong. If you feel that something is not right, probably something is not right. And of course, all the existing solutions, like the fact that the security build of walls and gates doesn't work for in industrial internet, doesn't mean that we don't need to have our houses protected. So install firewalls, install antiviruses. Just don't assume that that's enough. And again, it's just physical security. We have strong doors. We build our houses out of strong materials. But we don't forget to put burglar alarm systems to make sure that if somebody does break into our house, we'll know about it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, yeah, that's it. I think our half hour is up. Thanks for taking the time, Mark. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The pleasure is mine.